Anne Arundel County is a beautiful place. It's really a microcosm of the United States, the fourth largest jurisdiction in Maryland. We're at over 580,000 now, and we have BWI Airport. Between Baltimore and Washington in that corridor, we have 530 miles of coast right up against the Chesapeake Bay, and of course we're the capital of Maryland. People come here because it's got urban, rural, suburban. It's really a fantastic place to live.
Our award-winning park system has 130 community parks and 6 regional parks. We have 7,100 acres of recreational land, 9,100 acres of natural resource land, and park systems for everyone that lives in and outside of the county.
Arundel County has done a good job of building our relationships with the community. That helps us make not just the critical decisions, but sound decisions, because we're hearing from a segment of everyone.
There are really two things that I think are important for a government. The first is to restore trust. That means restoring trust between people, restore trust in what local government does. And so we've created a thing called Open Arundel, where the residents can go in and look at the performance metrics for every department of county government, and they can engage as well. We do budget town halls in every district, and we make sure that everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you.
And the other is to be healthy, health and wellness for us, our loved ones, our neighbors, our communities. And so I really measure the success of what we do based on health and wellness of our residents.
In land use, we are dedicated to making life better for our residents in Anne Arundel County. Plan 2040 is the guide for the next 20 years to ensure that development is smart, green, and equitable. Smart growth is ultimately health and wellness, because having the ability to walk, development is centered around transit, preserving open space and our natural resources.
Anne Arundel County Department of Recreation and Parks' mission statement is to create opportunities to enjoy life, explore nature, and restore well-being. We have athletic programs, recreational programs, child care services. There's something there for everyone, and we make life better.
In Anne Arundel County, the Department of Health, we are here to prevent, promote, and protect the health of all people in Anne Arundel County and people who visit as well. So our Office of Health Equity and Racial Justice was established when we were looking at what was happening in our county and in the world. And what we saw was persistent disparities in health outcomes based on race, ethnicity, gender, income, and even geography. And so we declared in this county racism as a public health issue in November of 2019. And we formed this Office of Health Equity and Racial Justice to address those issues and advance them.
The Anne Arundel County Police Department was founded in 1937. The agency is very progressive. All of our police officers are fully trained wearing a body-worn camera. We have 2 professors who've come in to help us journey through the history of policing and how policing has impacted communities of color. Having conversations with a facilitator about race and equity and diversity and inclusion, just so that we better understand one another. We have our crisis intervention team where we partner a police officer with a licensed clinician. They respond to these critical calls for service where people are suffering some type of behavioral or mental health crises. So we essentially see them through to any resources that they may require, whether it be a psychologist or drug treatment for longer periods of time. So our team was named the crisis intervention team internationally. That's a huge recognition. So we're asked to go to various police departments to help establish their very own crisis intervention team. There are times where our county departments will overlap, and we have a great working relationship between, OEM and fire. Preety Emmerich, we're rendering or offering assistance to help folks through those moments.
The Office of Emergency Management coordinates the planning, response, and recovery to natural and man-made disasters. That involves a couple of steps. Number 1, in the planning process, making sure we have plans ready. Number 2, we exercise and train with our county agencies. Number 3, when it is time to respond, we activate our Emergency Operations Center. And then that's where all the county agencies come in and coordinate the response. And then the 4th step is really the recovery process. So after the response is done, there's still a lot of cleanup work. There's still a lot of community help that's needed and making sure all the county agencies are involved. One of our newest resources is Pepper the Preparedness Pup. We really want to make sure that children understand that to be prepared is the best thing. So to teach them different situations in very simple terms.
Today we are learning about thunderstorms. Do you know what to do during a thunderstorm?
is just the beginning steps of how to be prepared.
Another thing that we all agree on is that there should be economic opportunity for everyone. As a lifelong business person myself, I'm very aware of the fact that what we do for our residents is possible only if the business community is behind it. The businesses are our partners, and together, everything positive we do for our community is helping the quality of life that people of all ages and all income levels need and want. Those are things that we can deliver in Anne Arundel County, and that's what makes us the best place for all.
All right, thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for watching that video. It's something that was put together by the International City Managers Association for their annual conference. They asked if they could come in and interview some of our staff, and I thought they did such a good job that it really does highlight some of the stuff that we fund in our budget for local government. And now everybody's here, and if you were late, you didn't miss the meat of the town hall. The purpose of tonight is to hear from you about what you think should or should not be funded in our budget. And we do this, we've done this every year since I've been in office, 3 years, and we do them in all 7 of the districts of the county. So I'm obviously thrilled to be in my home district in South County. I wish that we were at Southern High School where we used to do this. We thought we'd be back in person this year, and then COVID spiked again. So let's hope we're doing this together next year in person. What we're going to do is I'm joined by your councilwoman, District 7, Jessica Hare, and she'll have a few words, and then we are going to turn it over to our budget officer, Chris Trumbauer, and myself, who will take you through a slideshow as quickly as we can, because we don't want to take too much time with the background information, but we do want you to know some basics about how the budget is put together and what we've done in recent budgets. So with that, I will turn it over to Jessica Hare. The other thing I want to say is that when we're done, and we have a lot of people tonight, so it'll be a while, but when we're done, both the councilwoman and I will comment on what we've heard. We won't comment on each person's testimony, or we would be here all night, but we will speak up at the end and give you our thoughts about what we've heard. So Councilwoman Hare.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive, and thank you all for sharing your evening with us tonight. This is one of my favorite events that we do every year. I think it's so critical to hear directly from you all on the budget. And just a couple of quick examples. I mean, if we think back to the last few years, the Deal Park, we heard from a huge number of folks a few years back about the Deal Park, and that has made its way into the budget and is progressing through that process now with concept plans that will be available, I believe, for the public to comment soon. Last year and the year before, we heard from large groups of folks about animal care and control. And so those items, some of the animal enclosures made its way into the budget. So tonight is super important for me to hear directly from you. The council is the final fiscal authority in the county, so obviously we have to carefully consider every budgetary line item that comes before us. I am obviously careful every year to look at every line item, and we have had structural deficits the last 2 years, so I am very interested in hearing from you all tonight, specifically about your priorities as we look forward towards this coming year's budget, particularly with some large school budgetary items coming forward. I think Dr. Arlotto's proposed budget had a 13% increase. So how do we, accommodate everybody's wants, needs, desires, things like that with these issues that we see coming in all of these expenditures. So that is something that I'm looking at and really, look forward for your testimony too, to help us understand exactly what your priorities are. I will say that last year, I was very thrilled to introduce a bill at the council to increase our savings account at the council, just in case there's ever a year where our funds run short. Very grateful to the administration for their support on that bill, and actually all 6 of my council colleagues supported it and ended up co-sponsoring it after I introduced it. So we had a bill sponsored by the entire council. So I was super happy about that. And so those are sorts of things I look to do to try and make sure that we are really being responsible with our funds, particularly trying to overcome these structural deficits. So with that, again, I just very much appreciate you all being here. I'm looking forward to hearing what you all have to say. Thank you very much.
All right, Chris. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. County Executive. We are going to go into our slideshow here. So bear with me for 1 second while I get this set up. And we will go as quickly as possible in recognition that there is a lot of, oops, wrong button. A lot of people sign up to testify today. So here's a statement from Stuart that you already heard, so we'll skip past that. This is basically where we are in the timeline. As you can see, budget preparation really starts all the way back in the fall. And we're having these town meetings now because there's still plenty of opportunity to input. And so we want to hear your thoughts. The county exec and the administration won't be making their final decisions on what goes into the budget until March and April. So there is time. We are required to submit the county executive's proposed budget by May 1st. That'll be done April 29th this year. Then the council has 45 days to deliberate on it and amend it. And ultimately, they are required to vote on it by June 15th. And then it will go into effect at the start of the next fiscal year, which is July 1st. Okay, so here's where the revenue comes from. You can see there's two big bars at the top. That's property taxes and local income tax. That's by far our largest two sources of revenue. And you can see that there are smaller but also important components such as our recordation and transfer tax, which is real estate transfer taxes. We get some state shared revenue from the casinos and things like that, and then licensing and permits. So a bunch of little sources add up to contribute, and all told, it's about $1.8 billion of recurring revenue. So on the expenditure side, this is money. This is the other side of the books. Biggest source here is the Board of Ed. So we give the Board of Education almost $900 million towards their programs. The next biggest expense is our public safety core group. So that's police, fire, emergency management, and detention. And then you can see down the line, our other core groups are also funded. The last three at the bottom there, community college, library, and the court system, those are our component units. So they operate a little bit more independently than other county departments, but we of course provide the funding for them to do their good work. A little bit more detail on the Board of Ed budget. So $784.7 million in the current budget. That is directly funded to the school system, basically a big check that they get. But then there's other support funding, such as we pay the debt service, which is the interest on their bonds. We pay for school health officers, and we also pay for school safety, which is the student resource officers and school crossing. So add that all together, you get $896 million, and that's more than half of our county recurring revenue. I'm going to turn it back over to the county exec to run through some highlights of this year's budget.
All right, let's first talk about fiscal discipline. I would call it responsibility, however you want to say it. We thought we were going to have a bad year in our second budget because of COVID. And so we really tightened the belts. County staff did not get raises, most of them, unless they had contracts already in place. And then the economy did better than we thought. So in the budget last year, the 22 budget, we had a significant surplus. In fact, we've had a surplus every year because we budgeted conservatively, something that I like to do as a lifelong business person. And we ended up in a place where we were able to contribute to the rainy day fund, the revenue reserve fund. We needed council approval to be able to raise the amount that we could contribute. We've done that once again, and the bond rating agencies will like that. So that sets us up for future bad economies if things aren't going as well, to have that fund. We also, for our pensions, we increased what we put in there by lowering what we project as our rate of return on those. So it's a more conservative approach that the bond rating agencies like. And then debt affordability is something that is how much debt are we willing to go into? There are guidelines that are set. When I came in, the previous budget before ours had a debt, they were 75 million over affordability, and they hope that in future years they'll be able to work that out. We've reduced that down to zero, and in fact put a lot of a lot more into pay as you go, we call it, where we pay up front rather than borrow on capital projects. So our county is in a better fiscal place than it's been in its history, and fingers crossed our bond rating may well go up this year from AA to AAA with one of the agencies. So next slide. Public safety, number one, in my view, the fundamental obligation of government. And our police department particularly has done an incredible job these last few years. We've given them, we've had a major increase in support for the police department. Actually, since 18, a 31% increase in funding, more than any other county in the region. But that went for getting their pay, our officers' pay, up to the regional average, increasing the number of officers, getting us closer to that magic number of 825 sworn officers that the International Association of Police Chiefs says that we should have, and then giving them the technology that they need to do their jobs well. So we've had an 11% reduction in violent crime in our county, while the rest of the region and the country have been going up. And then our fire department has also been short-staffed and underpaid, and we had to boost both. We did accept a federal grant that allowed us to hire 50 more firefighters. We've also increased the number of paramedics. It's an expensive and long training program for that. So we've added a lot more slots for that program. And then fire apparatus, we had that one-time lump of money that was not recurring revenue at the end of last year. Bought a lot of new apparatus that was old and needed to be replaced. So next slide. I think, yeah, here we go. Okay, sorry, I've got two on my screen. Education is as Councilwoman Harris said, they've got a huge request this year, and we will not be able to fund all of it. Unfortunately, we've never been able to fund all of the school board's requests. But we did last year do 35 new classroom teachers to reduce class size, 50 new behavioral health specialists. And then one of the things that I think was most important for teacher morale in these difficult times is that they did not get the step increases that they were promised in their contract starting during the last recession. And then that failure to give them those increases continued. We have paid the back step increases. So we have made our teachers whole. They finally got that compensation in the agreement that they just negotiated with the school board. So there's much more work to do for our teachers and our educators, but progress has been made. Next slide. Infrastructure. It was no secret that every administration has said that we need to catch up on infrastructure backlog for schools, for roads and road improvements, for public safety infrastructure. We did that permanent public improvements fund in our first budget, which gave us $250 million worth of infrastructure improvements. So that allowed us to keep up with our school funding, school construction plan. It's also allowed us to bring state highways in with the carrot of our own funding for the Route 2 and Route 3 corridors, as well as Central Avenue, to be able to get state highways to invest in our county. So of the top 10 scoring projects in the state for road improvements, 6 of them are from Anne Arundel County, which is rather extraordinary. Next slide. On the environment, we created our stormwater strike team so that we can get out there and see not only on site but around the sites how the streams, the condition of the streams and the erosion off of the construction sites as well as the existing sites. We've created the Resilience Authority, which is, we've worked with the University of Maryland on a resilience plan, identifying parts of our county that are low-lying. And in District 7, Shady Side in particular, we've got a lot of very low-lying land, and we have public infrastructure that's going to need to be improved. City Dock in Annapolis is the first big project, but we are the second county in the state to create a Resilience Authority, the first that's an independent organization. Greenways Green Infrastructure Plan is in place, and we are trying to preserve 30% of the land mass of Anne Arundel County by the year 2030. We are on track to do that, but we're gonna have to have an aggressive plan in the coming years. And then we're working on the infrastructure for all electric vehicles in our county fleet, as well as serving the electric vehicles that our residents have. Next slide. Local projects, you can read through this. Actually, this is a partial list. There are many others as well. Lots on rec and parks that you can see. I won't go through that whole list, but we try to make sure that every district is getting their fair share. And it's not always completely equal, but It's an area we expect to hear some advocacy for during this town hall. Next slide. I think this is back to
me, I think, and I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, hey, that's a lot of great stuff in this year's budget, but talk about next year. All right. Well, when we talk about next year, we talk about our fiscal expectations. And one way to do that is look at how the revenue is coming in the current year. And right now in fiscal year 22, the revenues are coming back pretty healthy, fairly strong. There is still some uncertainty because of the pandemic and some volatility in the markets and inflation. But we're looking at this being a stable year, and hopefully that continues into the next fiscal year and fiscal year 23. But we have to keep in mind that even if revenues are strong, there are higher costs and expenditures that are going to offset that. So we still have to be very careful with how we budget. Now, fortunately, and the county exec mentioned the last couple of years, because of the way that we've budgeted responsibly, we do have healthy fund balance, and that can be deployed in the budget in one-time things. And the county exec mentioned before, you can put it into the capital budget as pay as you go instead of doing additional bonds and taking on debt. And then over on the right of the screen, you see a little box about our American Rescue Plan funding. County did get $56 million last May. We're set to get another $56 million in this coming May, and that can be deployed against the impacts of the COVID pandemic. So if we look a little bit more specific on the expenditure side, we have some what we call non-discretionary increases every year. These are in essence things that we have to do. So, our debt service costs increase. There's adjustments to our health insurance and pension contributions. And then of course we have to negotiate with our employee bargaining units, the labor groups, to give them a fair package. And then there's other discretionary increases. So for instance, some of our component units may have requests like the community college, how much money we're able to give to the Board of Education towards their requests. And then other things that our departments will request, we call them supplemental requests. So that's doing new programs or new initiatives to serve the residents of the county. To the extent we have available funding, we try and support those efforts as well. This is a good slide. This shows us where the Anne Arundel County residents are in comparison to our neighbors in Maryland. We're highlighted yellow. This is the property tax rates that we pay. And we're the 7th lowest in the entire state. We're the lowest in our Central Maryland region. And you can see many of our neighboring jurisdictions, they're paying over $1 per $100 of assessed value. We are still much below that. We're at 0.933. So good rate here. Very proud of that in Anne Arundel County. And even better news on the income tax side. Counties in Maryland are allowed to have a tax rate of up to 3.2%. Many of them do have that maximum. Again, you can see we're way on the right side of this, which means we have the 4th lowest in the entire state. That's 24 jurisdictions. The only 3 counties with a lower tax rate than ours are Garrett, Talbot, and Worcester. So those are rural counties in Western Maryland and the Eastern Shore. So all of our Central Maryland neighbors are paying much higher taxes than we are in Anne Arundel. I'm going to turn it back over to the county exec to talk a little about our fiscal recovery funds.
All right, and I would add that we like having our taxes lowest in the region, and we want to keep it that way. CARES money was the $100 million that came earlier in the pandemic, and that was spent for a lot of the health impacts as well as the economic impacts of CARES. We spent, I think, $38 million between CARES and ARPA recently on our small businesses to help them out, as well as a lot of other programs, food distribution, a lot of things that you saw to help get through the pandemic. And then the ARPA was the second installment that was, it's over 2 years that Chris already mentioned. You can actually get a lot of information online about how we spent this money. It's been fully accounted for. The first group and the second we're in the middle of because we haven't gotten the second installment. So next slide shows our ARPA funding. It's about half county operations. And these are things that are still pandemic related, but that are borne by our county departments. And then additional programs, a lot in health and wellness to be able to deal with the health impacts of COVID and vaccinating people and testing people, and as well as food assistance that has been caused by the economic impact. Next slide. And you can get all this information on Open Arundel. So when I came in, there was a real concern about how difficult it was to get information about county government, its budget, the performance metrics of the different departments. Some departments didn't have metrics. So we created those metrics through Arundel Stat, which is a 2-person little operation within our office that gets information from the various departments, puts it up online, and you can spend hours and hours and hours going through all of this. There's a lot of GIS mapping information that makes it fun as well. So I highly recommend any government nerds or budget nerds going in here. And then the next slide. This is, you may remember that the first 3 years we had what we called the budget tool to build your own budget. I was always frustrated that it wasn't detailed enough. And so this year we have created something here that Chris is going to show you, but it's still being beta tested and security measures being installed so that you can actually go in and change the real budget. But Chris will show us what we're going to be able to do here shortly.
Great. Well, thanks, County Executive. So this is a online budget tool that, as he said, we're hoping to unveil to the public and make live a little bit later this year, definitely before we introduce the FY23 budget. But we can tell because there's so many people signed up for these town halls, there's a lot of interest in the budget. And what this tool will allow you to do is explore a little deeper. So here I'm going to click on the operating revenue. And what that brings up is the different sources of our revenue. Similar to the chart in the presentation, we see property tax and income tax, and you can see them displayed. But what's interesting is you can go and click in one of these and see the detail. So I clicked on licensing and permits, and you can see, okay, well, look, here's beer, wine, and liquor permits. Well, that's 6.3%. That's about $1.1 million. And then we can look at, okay, well, let's see, what does animal control bring in, and then it'll show you dog licenses, $140,000. So, I mean, you can just keep clicking into these and get more details, but it's kind of exciting for those who want to see a little bit more about the budget. And then we'll click back on the other side. This is expenditures. So this is where we're spending the money. And again, this is a list of all of our departments. You can click on any one of them and get some details. We've been clicking on Rec and Parks lately because they have some fun things to explore. On the top here is the different budget categories. So this bar is the personal services. This is contractual. This is supplies and materials. You see when you hover over it, you can get more detail. And then down here is how the department is organized. Typically it's in different bureaus. So we have in Rec and Parks, we have the Parks Bureau, we have the Recreation Bureau. They actually manage their golf courses in a different fund. And then we have the administration over here. So you can click in Recreation, for example, and it'll give you, once it loads, my kid's probably watching Netflix right now, so this is going slow, but it'll give you a little bit more detail. So it seems to be timed out, and I know we want to get to our portion where we get to the public comment. So I'll go ahead and escape back out of this and let you finish us up, Mr. County Exec.
Yeah, so if there are any more comments you want to make, you can go to aacounty.org, your budget, get all of this information. And I will note that the reason that our budget officer went to Rec and Parks is it's his favorite department. It's the Department of Fun, and he's actually been given a hat to wear. We haven't seen it yet in the town hall, but it's his ranger hat. And he thinks that he's a park ranger, but really he's a budget officer. But we all love Rec and Parks because it is the Department of Fun and Health. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to your community engagement constituent service representative, Vince Molden, who I think many of you know, and he will moderate the fun part of tonight, which is hearing from you.
Awesome. Thank you, County Executive Pittman. Once again, good evening, everyone. I'm Vincent Molden, and I'm the Assistant Director of Community Engagement and Constituent Services. And like the County Executive said, I get to moderate the fun part tonight. So we're very excited to hear from all of you. Before we get started, I just want to go over some ground rules. If you're joining us via Zoom, you'll have the option to raise your hand at the bottom of your screen. And once you click that button, I'll call your name and you'll have the ability to unmute yourself. If you want to check in with me just to say, hey, Vince, can you hear me? You can do that and I'll let you know. And now you'll see a timer on your screen. This is probably the most important part. Everyone has 2 minutes tonight to speak, and we ask that you stick to that 2 minutes. If you get lost in your testimony and you're not paying attention to the clock, Don't worry, I'll remind you and I'll ask you to wrap up your comments and then we'll move on to the next person. Keep in mind, any time that you run over, it's just cutting into someone else's time. So we want to be respectful of everyone. The final note is that County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare will not be responding to comments directly, but they will be taking a ton of notes and they'll respond at the end. So with that, let's get started with LaWanda Gray. LaWanda, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is LaWanda Gray. I have lived at 5935 Sneed Drive in Deal for the past 24 years. I served as a member of the Small Area Plan Committee for the General Development Plan, and I'm speaking this evening as a member of the Deal Park Committee. Members of the Deal Shadyside Small Area Plan Committee would like to thank you for your important action to preserve the land next to the Deal Library for a public park, as was suggested on page 100 of the Small Area Plan. Your leadership saved this important space in the middle of Deal for the reasons mentioned in the plan, a space needed for a public park that has been wanted for a long time by residents instead of the 20 houses to be built, that were to be built. The Small Area Plan had the foresight to recommend saving this parcel of land, and you had the leadership to facilitate its acquisition. The plan represents the community's wishes. Also in the plan is proposed construction of a community center that would form a unified complex with the existing library and new park. On behalf of the members of the Small Area Plan Committee, I urge you to follow the plan's recommendations, which include building a community center with a state-of-the-art boys and girls club, which will include full-size gymnasium and teen club, a senior activity center, which will host educational programs, recreational activities, and classes in art, history, crafts, computer use, dance, and physical fitness. Thank you again for preventing residential development of the land and for acquiring it for a much needed community park in Deal, and for your leadership going forward to fulfill the original vision for this property, which includes a community center. Thank you.
Thank you, LaWanda. Up next, we'll have Mike Shea, and then after that, we'll have Latana Hollerbach.
Mike Shea here. I've been in the leadership of South Arundel Citizens for Responsible Development for over 20 years. And first of all, I would like to thank the county executive for the Deal Park acquisition. 20 years of county executives came before him since the Small Area Plan, but it was this county executive that met the need. The county executive put this deal together and acquired the land for Deal Park, even though there was current building permits in place for 20 houses. So this evening, I asked the county executive to meet the Small Area Plan vision and need and follow through on the plan for a new community center in the center of town in the new Deal Park. The plan is to place next to the library and make it right-sized for our community. The library, the community center are meant to be an anchor along with our post office and small independent businesses. Citizens should look at the neighboring county websites and you can see where community centers are and what their facilities and programs look like. Visit some. We should remember that the park would not exist and the needed community center would not be part of the discussion if we did not have the citizen planners that came before us and put vision and need to paper. Thank you. Some are on the call tonight. I would also share with my South County neighbors, it's important for our county council person, Jessica Hare, to not only support these important projects, but to be responsible and stop voting every year against the budgets that create our park, community center, and senior center. Congratulations to the county executive on breaking ground on the new Severn Community Center. So I ask that our new community center be right-sized and in the right place. The center of town is planned next to the library. We live in a beautiful place. It does not happen by accident. It happens because of planning and hard work. Turning the vision and plan into reality for a community center is the right move to make for all the right reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Up next is Latani Hollerbach and then Bernard Nolan.
Hi there, Litany Hollerbach here. I am with Sprout, and we are partnering with Crofton Community Missions. And our hope is that with this budget fully funded, we would like to design and install a community garden in Crofton. Our vision includes an educational space as well as hands-on programs to help members in the Anne Arundel community gain a better connection with nature and their neighbors. We are proposing the work be completed in 5 phases, and our hope would be to see anything from an outdoor classroom, walking trails, infrastructure such as a crosswalk for safety, pumpkin patch, all kinds of vegetable garden, children's garden. And we recently hosted a community share Zoom call and had about 20 members sign in and talk about similar ideas for the space in Crofton. And many had similar ideas to this garden. We heard some ideas about a pocket park, a small park with native trees, but the idea is to keep the new property in Crofton as open space and a way to bring the community together. Thank you.
Thank you, Litany. Just as a reminder, if you would like to speak, please click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. We have about 102 people joining us on Zoom tonight and 29 hands up. Up next, we have Bernard Nolan, and then we'll hear from Skip Old. Bernard, are you with us? Maybe we can come back to Bernard. Can we go to Skip Old?
Thank you, Mr. Molden. Good evening. I am Skip Auld, Anne Arundel County Public Library's Chief Executive Officer. I'm also a happy resident of Davidsonville in District 7. I want to thank both Councilwoman Hare and County Executive Pittman for their support of our libraries. Together, we are building a library system to be proud of. This evening, I'm testifying in support of the library's budget, especially to ask your support on 2 critical supplemental requests. My top priority, along with the Library Board of Trustees, is to ensure that our staff are paid fairly and competitively. I don't need to tell library users at this Zoom meeting that our staff have more than proven their immense value during the pandemic, from giving out COVID tests to hosting vaccine clinics to loaning out computers and Wi-Fi hotspots. A Deal Library customer said, "You all are wonderful. I needed your help scanning my husband's death certificate, and I am so overwhelmed. It is great that you could help me today." An Edgewater customer said, "I've really appreciated having the library services available. I also really appreciate all of you that make it happen. The Edgewater Library rocks. So please help us bring library staff salaries in line with other jurisdictions." Our second priority is to create a critical outreach program called the Center for Community Engagement. This program will reach people in the greatest need who cannot easily get to the libraries. The primary goal of this center is to increase kindergarten readiness. The creation of a Center for Community Engagement can build on our past success and impact kindergarten readiness by reaching people where they are. Really appreciate you, and thank you both for your support of these requests.
Thank you, Skip. Always nice to hear from the library. Let's try Bernard Nolan again, and then Kristen Smith. Bernard, are you still having trouble? All right, let's go to Kristen Smith. Kristen, are you able to unmute yourself?
I did. Thank you.
Great.
My name is Chris Smith, and I live in Edgewater. I'm president of Community Alliance in South County. My subject is transportation. We need greatly enhanced connectivity to areas north of the South River and much more coverage within South County. Call and ride has been called expensive to operate, but think of the very real cost if someone does not get to where they need to go. Here's an example. A recent study showed that our county's district court had the third highest rate of failures to appear among all of the district courts in Maryland. Baltimore City had the lowest, even though it had twice as many cases. Why? The first thing that pops into my head is transportation. There's a district court in Glen Burnie. What do you do? Ride a bike? Think of the wasted time for all those who have prepared to participate in the case. Now you issue a warrant, serve a warrant, process the offender, maybe jail, money, money, money. That's a cost of inadequate transportation. Here's another point. For a one-car family, would you buy another car just so your high school student could have an internship? Probably out of the question. And yet, more and more college applications look for a student's internship experience. Your student is at a disadvantage. Employers too can see initiative, energy, and drive in an applicant with an internship on their resume. They become more valuable already. That's about future earnings. Kelly Stutzman is manager of internships and business programs for the school system. She used the phrase fairly common in describing transportation as an issue that interferes with a student's ability to participate in an internship. The question isn't just who wants to shop at Parole Town Center.
Thank you, Chris. Up next, we'll hear from Sean Livingston and then Linda Green.
All right, if you guys hear kids in the background, I apologize.
Just a little.
Hi, everyone. Sean Livingston, candidate for County Council, District 7. Thank you to the County Executive for hosting these town halls and giving us a chance to share the needs of our communities. As I've been getting to know my neighbors better over the last several months, a few projects have come up that deserve attention. First, the Deal Park Community Center. Thank you for acquiring the land in Deal to create a park for the community, but we can't stop there. In addition to the park, the small area plan also recommends the construction of a community center. While considering the shape the community center will take, the community asks the administration to build and staff a center that will accommodate such needs as those met at the new Severn Intergenerational Center, a true community center that facilitates educational programs, recreational activities, and community classes for all ages from children to seniors. Next, Crofton's front yard. The people of Crofton purchased the enclave to preserve it for future generations, but it comes with a financial burden. One way to offset this cost is to transform the property into a public park, which will lower taxes for each family in Crofton. To achieve this designation, a road and parking lot must be added. Please consider covering these improvements to offset this cost to families while conserving this important green space. Also want to mention 214 leading to the Mayo Peninsula. The community of the Mayo Peninsula appreciates the administration's desire to create more robust parks and increase water access for the people and families of Anne Arundel County, but are concerned that these projects are earmarked for development before the completion of road improvements. The development of the peninsula has already exceeded the capacity originally intended for the road. There are concerns about creating destinations that promote more traffic on an already strained roadway. Please consider postponing these community improvements until after the road situation has been addressed. On the topic of Mayo, it has also come to my attention that the Scenic Rivers Land Trust has serious interest in conserving the Glebe Heights Forest, and I hope the county will use their Greenway funding to contribute to these efforts to see this come to fruition. Finally, I want to throw a plug in for our first responders, the police, firefighters, and paramedics. While not specific to District 7, I know that during these unprecedented times, they need every last ounce of support we can provide. I hope you will continue to make room in the budget to provide the funds that they request. Thanks again for this opportunity and for supporting so many important projects in District 7.
Thank you, Sean. Up next is Linda Green, and then we'll hear from Jane Beard.
Hi, I'm Linda Green from Edgewater, and I'm a member of the Library Foundation Board. I'm here tonight to support the library's budget and to urge your support for some supplemental requests. I personally spent more than 25 years in state government service. I understand public service, and our library staff are exemplary public servants. They too have been frontline workers during this pandemic. Some examples and words from our patrons say it best. A senior citizen unable to visit her beloved husband in a nursing home due to COVID restrictions turned to the library. There, the library staff helped her to use their computer resources, the internet, and their Zoom account. She was able to see his face for the first time in months. Her laughter and joy mixed with tears as they shared that precious time together. Our library made that connection happen. Another customer from South County was trying to figure out how to deal with a legal issue and didn't know where to start. She turned to her Deal library. They helped her find free legal forms and pro bono legal help. The customer said, "I prayed to God to give me answers, and he sent me to the library. You have no idea what you've done for me. I've been through a lot, and sometimes I get taken advantage of. I'm so glad I came here, and I'm so happy." Library staff make a difference in the lives of people and this community of Anne Arundel County every day. I urge you to keep our talented, compassionate, and efficient staff to support them by supporting our request for salary adjustments, and also for additional staff to maintain the services that we are moving forward on for our county, including those of a social worker, a cybersecurity specialist, and other frontline public service staff. We appreciate all that the county does for us. As a foundation, we support that with recruiting private donations as well. Thank you for the support you've given the county in the past, and please support us again as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Up next is Jane Beard, and then we'll hear from Louise Thomas.
Hi, I'm here also to speak in favor of the Deal Community Center. We have the land. Let's not let things go fallow. Let's build it. There are floor plans that exist for it, for the park and the community center. Here's why I think it's a good investment for all of Anne Arundel, not just Deal. First of all, this is a community center that will house and give services to the entire gamut from preschool to elderly. So it fits everybody who lives here. We live in a time of people choosing the red team or the blue team, and we're not getting along. And so if we can have a community center and a park where people can see each other, be with each other, play, I think we'll have a more harmonious community than we have right now. All four of these plans include pickleball, which is the fastest growing sport in America right now. And it's easy for some people down here to drive up county to go to Quiet Waters or to go to some other park. It's long past time that we have something down here to serve our community. I'm really, really proud to be a member of Anne Arundel County's community. I've been here 8 years. We searched for 2 years up and down the East Coast when we decided we wanted to get out of Montgomery County. We chose Churchton, where I live. I see the Bay every day. I love it here, and this community center would mean a great deal to everybody in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Up next is Louise Thomas, and then Kaylee Locklear.
Thank you. I speak to the sport of tennis and the tennis center at Millersville Park, a county-wide project located within 15 minutes of all 7 of our county districts. Mr. Pittman, you've made it clear that you plan to stop this project. Take away the site, take away the $6 million approved for tennis. After 6 years of budget approvals, the project was set to deliver years of affordable year-round programs. Programs for youth, adults, seniors, free family days, free high school tennis, programs for veterans, wheelchair tennis, Special Olympics, educational programming provided off-site for underserved communities, and filling a dramatic need for public access to our sport in Anne Arundel County. Our neighboring counties have 18 public indoor tennis facilities delivering programs. Anne Arundel County has none. Residents leave the county for courts and programs, that is, those who are fortunate enough to have the means and ability to do so. The whole intention of this project was to provide public access to a lifetime affordable sport to make Anne Arundel County a better place to live. You eliminate $6 million for a county-wide project. In its place, you plan to put District 4 fields that cost the county $8 million, create more traffic, more noise, and serve fewer constituencies. You asked $34 million for a third indoor swim center, $15 million for a fourth indoor swim center, almost $10 million for a clubhouse for one of 2 golf courses. For tennis, zero, only funding to go find another site and start over. Mr. Pittman, our sport community organized for 8 years. We delivered expertise, funding, studies, site plans, a public-private partnership to save the county millions of dollars. You have the option to keep working on this project. It takes hard work to execute, resiliency, gumption, strategic thinking, qualities learned through sports. Please do the hard work, Mr. Pittman. Our county needs this facility. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Louise. Up next is Kaylee Locklear and then dinatice.
Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this evening. For the record, my name is Kaylee Locklear and I am an Edgewater resident and candidate for council in District 7. Based on the information we currently have, there are very serious realities we will need to contemplate for the next fiscal year. If you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well as the Bureau of Economic Analysis, both point to inflation between 5 to 7% because of supply chain issues and massive out of control federal spending. This means potentially an additional almost $120 million in new inflation costs if we merely level fund the current budget. I also recognize the value and need for necessary county services. And with yesterday's tragedy in Baltimore's fire department, we are reminded that both our fire and police in Anne Arundel are understaffed. And we must ensure in this budget that they have the resources needed to safely operate. So with that said, I'd like to offer a mix of solutions to mitigate what could potentially result in tax increases, which I oppose. Number one, to the extent possible, we need to focus on mandatory costs in both the operating and capital budgets. We will pay much higher rates for any future debt service, so we need to look at what is a priority and what is deferrable. Number two, being attentive to ripple effects of inflation, like interest rates on our bonds, should be closely watched as well. Number three, securing state funding to help with projects. And number four, and again, in the interest of avoiding tax increases and to protect services, as much as I don't like it, a modest withdrawal from the rainy day fund may need to be considered unless revenues are up enough to cover the remaining difference, but we don't have those numbers. I'd strongly caution the council, encourage frugality, and prioritize projects which will be critical to this period of high inflation. We need economic growth to be able to provide for more services, infrastructure, and tax cuts. And as COVID's impacts rage on, we need to protect the fragile state of our budget and our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. And thank you to everyone who's been doing such a great job sticking to the time limit. Up next is dinatice, and then we have Mike.
Good evening, County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare. I thank you for setting up this town hall and hearing the requests of District 7 constituents. I am dinatice, a full-time farmer in the district. I'm very involved with education of youth in agriculture through 4-H and FFA programs in the county. As the secretary of the Friends of Rockhold Creek Farm and Barn, I thank you for making that farm a place where the youth experience the opportunity to raise livestock and learn about agriculture. They are making their career decisions based off of those experiences. I request that you consider adding funding to the budget to finish building stalls in the barn and making paddocks for outside turnout so that we can offer more space to youth in the county. Currently, the stalls that are complete are full and our 4-H and FFA clubs are growing. We fear we will not have enough stalls this year for the applications that are coming in to use the barn. I would also like to ask that you support the opportunity to make Southern High School's CASE Agriculture Science Program a magnet program for all youth in Anne Arundel County. As a member of the Anne Arundel County Ag Commission and the co-chair of its Ag Education Committee, I have heard from numerous families in the county that have a child that knows they want a career in agriculture and would love the opportunity to start their learning in high school. We certainly need more kids that want to work in agriculture in our county, as our workforce is currently diminishing. By giving the kids a jump start in ag classes and experiences, that will only better our county agriculture businesses in the future. This will help keep the open spaces of Anne Arundel County, for which everyone wants to enjoy. But the number one reason we need to educate our youth about agriculture is to feed everyone locally in the future. Thank you again for your time tonight and considering both requests.
Thank you, Tina. Up next, we have Mike, no last name listed, and then we'll hear from Matt Minahan.
Okay, Vince, I hope you can hear me, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. This is Mike Lofton. I'm a 50 plus year now, resident of District 7, and I offer hope. It's only 54 days till spring, 47 days until daylight savings time changes. So things will get better. And when that happens, the public's going to want to go to their parks again for recreation, for respite, for family time and the like. Last year, Anne Arundel Rec and Parks turned away thousands of families at the entrances to public parks, 5,000 at Mayo Beach Park alone. In desperation, the county implemented a rationing system to control access to the parks. This may appear to have brought order out of disorder, but it has not addressed the failure of the park system to meet the public's need for park access. This year is going to be worse because Beverly Triton Beach is closed for construction. So here's the ask. Open Mayo Beach Park every day, except for the weekdays when the adaptive camp operates. Stop closing the public park for private events. There are plenty of tax-paying, job-creating commercial venues that offer this service. Fund recreation and parks so that Mayo and the other parks have adequate staff and equipment to deliver a high-quality experience to the visiting public. And finally, accelerate implementation of the plan to bring our parks up to minimum ADA standards. The LIPR that's circulating for public review now phases in these improvements over 15 years. That's unsatisfactory. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mike. Also, if you're joining us by phone, I see we have 2 phone calls, listeners. You can hit *9 and that'll create the raise hand function, and I'll call the last 4 digits of your number and you can participate as well. Up next is Mike Minahan, and then we might have Mike Share.
Yeah, hi Vince. It's Matt Minahan. Thanks to County Executive Councilwoman Hare and Mr. Trumbauer for this. Just a quick touch and go on 4 topics. Deeply appreciative of the county's commitment to manage development, to reduce variances and exceptions, and to staff OPZ. A stronger OPZ makes for a stronger county. The Peninsula Policy Development Area was a wonderful addition to the general development plan, and I'm appreciative of the county's work on that. In terms of 214, the stretch from Muddy Creek down to Summit School, thank you, Mr. Pittman, for advance funding that project. The state has it underway already. We're hoping to see the preliminary design soon, but it's underway because you put county money on it while the state gets it into the budget cycle, and I'm deeply appreciative of that. This is going to improve the safety of 214, and it's going to allow for better police and fire access on 214. In terms of forest conservation, I think we need a stronger green infrastructure master plan. I wish we had a no net loss provision in that, as does Annapolis and other counties in the state. And I encourage the county to add, please, more money for acquisition and preservation of parkland and conservation. And finally, thanks to the county and the Parks Department for a really good permit system to manage the access to Mayo Beach Park this past summer. It was a huge relief to the neighborhood and a much improved situation from the previous summer when we were all overrun by the traffic. Thanks again for tonight. and look forward to your work together.
Thank you, Matt. Up next is Mike Shear, and then we'll hear from Aaron Josephson.
Good evening. I'm Mike Shire from the Anne Arundel County Fraternal Order of Police, representing the active and retired police officers of Anne Arundel County. I'm also a proud resident of District 7. First, I want to thank Mr. Pittman and Councilwoman Hare for the opportunity to speak here tonight. We also appreciate everyone who spoke tonight in favor of continuing to invest in public safety for our county. Our county's police officers are out on the street, pandemic or not, providing unparalleled service to our communities. Even at fully budgeted strength, we operate with staffing levels well below our neighboring comparable jurisdictions, which means as a practical matter, our officers are burdened with the responsibility of performing like 2 or 3 officers from other jurisdictions. Meanwhile, we're struggling to maintain staffing in face of terrible nationwide rhetoric against our honorable profession. Despite all that, as the county executive mentioned, it's notable that while crime increases around us, Anne Arundel County police officers have held back that tide and actually decreased crime in this county. We've made great progress digging out of the hole created by the previous administration's failure to invest in public safety, but there is still more work to be done. We have facilities that are overdue for replacement and reinvestment, such as our truly abysmal firearms range. You saw some pictures of that in the video, and I was out there the other day. The ceiling is literally falling down. This is where our county's law enforcement officers train on how to make legal and moral decisions about using deadly force, and it's overdue for replacement. It's kind of an important facility. We also have other initiatives that are in need of greater support, such as our technology programs and our mental health programs. Plus, the cost of doing business in public safety is increasing as we work to implement programs such as our body-worn camera program, and we work to comply with new state mandates. These things should not be simply mistaken as spending. As the county executive called it, this is investment in the safety and security of our communities that pays dividends in so many ways. It's vitally important that we have the support of our citizens and our elected officials in their rhetoric, their legislation, and of course the county's budget. I'm sure that everyone agrees the county executive sentiment that the public safety is the most important role our government plays, and our collective hope is that all of our elected officials recognize and remember the vital role that public safety continues to play in making Anne Arundel County the best place for all. We thank everybody for their support.
Thank you, Mike. Up next is Aaron Joseph, and then we'll hear from Elizabeth Rudy. Aaron, are you able to speak? All right, Aaron, we'll come back to you. Elizabeth?
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Ruddy, and I have been an educator in Anne Arundel County for 16 years, and I am a parent to Shannon, a 4th grader at Crofton Elementary, and Owen, a 7th grader at Crofton Middle. I want to start off tonight by thanking all of you for the efforts that have been made over the past few years to remedy the salary inequities for AACPS educators. At the end of next month, I will finally be paid a salary that matches my years of experience, which is something that I haven't been able to say since 2008, almost 14 years. This has meant a great deal to me and my family. Most notably, it has meant that in 2020, we were finally able to make the transition from tenants to homeowners in Crofton. However, the time for bold action is now. There's an emergency in AACPS. We are losing educators at a phenomenal rate and are not doing well attracting new teachers. I will use my daughter Shannon's experience at Crofton Elementary as an example. This year, her 1st grade teacher made the decision to retire halfway through the year. Her 2nd grade teacher left in 2019 to work in a neighboring county, and currently her 4th grade teacher left the profession 2 weeks ago. This is just our experience with my daughter's immediate teachers. There are many more just in her school that have moved on recently. This is not normal and should be cause for alarm. I ask that you continue to go above and beyond and consider adding 1% to Dr. Arlotto's recommendation for a 4% COLA next year. This will be part of the bold steps that will be necessary to support the recruitment and retention of educators in our county. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Aaron Josephson, do you want to give it a chance again?
Vince, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Was that a yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Aaron Josephson. I'm a resident of the Holland Point neighborhood in the southernmost part of District 7. The Holland Point Citizens Association, which administers the Holland Point Special Community Benefit District, has proposed a significant property tax assessment increase for FY23 by adding to the budget request an item for legal fees. The Holland Point Association wants to void 2 contracts it entered into, and the association knows that if it breaches those contracts, it will need to pay for litigation. The association wants to raise taxes on homeowners to pay for litigation, even though the homeowners voted at a recent meeting not to authorize such money. Unlike many other special community benefit districts, Anne Arundel County Code does not list legal costs as an allowable expense for the Holland Point SCBD. When asked how the Holland Point Association could justify the legal fees in light of what the county code says, the board of directors said they'll just move legal fees to the maintenance line of the budget. I strongly urge the county executive and the county council to ensure the budget for the Holland Point SCBD does not include funding for legal fees, whether explicitly or hidden in the maintenance line. The community has not approved the use of its tax dollars this way. In addition to hiding legal fees in the maintenance line of the budget, the Holland Point Association has 2 directors who are acting in that capacity without having been elected, and the board of directors refuses to follow other provisions of its bylaws. The Special Community Benefit District program gives the county oversight of the collection and distribution of tax dollars, and the county must exercise that oversight to protect taxpayers from a board of directors that refuses to follow its community's stated wishes and is potentially engaged in fraud. This situation begs for your intervention, Mr. County Executive and Councilwoman Hare. I urge you to use whatever oversight mechanisms you have through the executive branch and council to ensure that these funds are budgeted and accounted for properly. If the county auditor or other functions require additional funding for this oversight, please include such funding in the budget. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Aaron. Up next is Courtney Buniskis, and then we'll hear from Julia House.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here today to testify on behalf of the Deal Community Center. Thank you to the County Council and County Executive for taking the time to hear our important words and voices. My name is Courtney Buniskis, and I am the current candidate for delegate of District 30B. More importantly, I am a lifelong resident of our beautiful district. As a 20-year resident and concerned citizen of South County, I'm here to encourage and testify why the building and creation of Deal Village and community is so important. By building and providing this center that was well promised over 20 years ago, can provide many opportunities for increased community-wide activities in this beautiful and great district. I ask once again that the construction of the community center be considered. Even over 20 years ago, written in the Deal Shadyside Small Area Plan preliminary draft of 2000, residents in South County were promised that the Deal Village and Community Center would strengthen the appeal of our area. We were promised that this creation would serve as a place to attract a larger and more active community presence. The flow of activities would increase. The flow of greater community use of the area would increase while being overall beneficial, especially for businesses. However, here we are today, over 20 years later, testifying why the Deal Village Center is still needed in our community. When I hear from the young families that want to park in the community, I understand the need for our community center as a candidate for delegate and also as a lifelong South County resident. We also deserve a new facility with South County charm like the residents of Severn. South County deserves a community center. We deserve a place where residents can take classes or simply exercise. Our center also deserves to be welcoming and inclusive for all community members. I thank everyone for their time, and I'm looking forward to the ceremony for the groundbreaking work on the Deal Community Center.
Thank you, Courtney. Up next is Julia, and then we'll hear from Donna.
Good evening. My name is Julia House, 4951 Chestnut Street in Shadyside.
I'm a lifelong resident of Southern Anne Arundel County. I'm speaking tonight as a resident, mother, business owner, and business community advocate. My first topic is public swimming beaches. Beverly Triton Park, complete and open the decades overdue public swimming beach as soon as possible. Mayo Beach Park, open beach park to the public all year except on summer weekdays when the adaptive camp for children is in operation. Open Mayo Park to the general public from 4 p.m. to dusk on camp days so people can take their kids to the beach after work. Mayo Beach Park must open for everyone every day. Agriculture education needs to be a priority with the youth. Work with AACPS to make the Southern High Ag program available to students across the county. Please expand the Rockhold Creek Barn for our youth to raise livestock. Youth sports are important to families, and not only do we need access to fields, but also facilities. Improvements made to fields such as lighting, scoreboards, and better fields, especially access to turf fields. Maintenance of the existing fields. It was recently brought to my attention that within the schools, some of the equipment, such as basketball hoops, are outdated and not the best to be used. Health youth sports programs and school physical education staff identify those needs and improvements. The Deal Park. Please continue to fund this program and expedite the construction of the project. Continue to keep this project as proposed with an open space, not another building. Our families and older adult population have learned these past few years that open spaces outdoors are important. Playgrounds, pavilions, picnic areas, walking, bike paths, those are all the important things. A center for our residents is important, but don't feel this space is appropriate for this usage. Expand on what is already in our community and use existing buildings or look other places for a center to have educational programs, family resources, and senior services in South County. The roads in South County are not the best, and continued construction of Muddy Creek Road is awful. I know this is a state road like most are in South County, but something must be done to work with our state partners on cleaning these roads up, reducing the potholes, patches, and worrisome conditions of our roads. Southern Anne Arundel continues to be the stepchild of the county. Keep us at the table and a part of the conversation. Look at the opportunities, resources, and amenities that are available above the South River Bridge, then compare. You too will see the disparities. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Up next, we have Donna, and then we'll hear from the Crofton Town Hall.
Good evening. My name is Donna Hilton. I've been a volunteer working with the dogs at Animal Care and Control for over 9 years. Last year, I testified to the need for a staff veterinarian for the shelter. Despite a 2018 state law that requires that a veterinarian supervise the medical care of all animals at the shelter, our shelter has never had a veterinarian on staff. Some of the animals arrive at the shelter in horrible condition, emaciated with skin issues, wounds, or medical conditions. With no vet on staff, these poor animals must be transported to an outside veterinarian, adding to the animal's stress and often delaying care since an available vet appointment must be found, along with someone to transport the animal. Just the other day, I was bringing a dog in from a walk when she all of a sudden started crying and holding up a back leg. Not having a vet on staff, I took her to the kennel techs. These techs are amazing and often going above and beyond for the animals, but they're not veterinarians. I was grateful when you authorized funds for a part-time veterinarian last year and very disappointed when they were unable to fill that position. It seems that vets are in high demand and a part-time position with no benefits is just not that appealing. The staff veterinarian should also be able to perform dentals, a procedure that leads to the health and adoptability of many cats and dogs throughout the year. Specialized equipment is needed to perform these procedures. Along with the increased funding for a full-time vet, I am asking for a one-time purchase of the dental equipment that would be needed. In conclusion, thank you very much for what you've done for the shelter in previous years, and please consider the full-time vet and dental equipment for this year. Thanks.
Thank you. And once again, if you would like to participate and speak, click the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining us by phone, click *9. Up next is Crofton Town Hall, and then we will hear from Steve Sutton.
Good evening, Stuart and Jessica. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Thank you. This is Martin Simon. As president of the Crofton Civic Association, I'm here to request county financial assistance in modernizing our aging playgrounds here in the Crofton Triangle. Stuart, if you'll recall from our walking tour last summer, Swan Park has several playground features, the newest of which was purchased back in 1998. Although still mostly functional, each piece is in need of some degree of repair, but no longer supported by the manufacturer. Two of the larger pieces no longer meet current safety standards, and cannot be retrofitted to do so. The equipment at the Willows Playground and Hardy Field is just as old, if not older, significantly older at Hardy Field, with some pieces dating back to the 1970s. Accessibility is another driving force behind our desire to upgrade our playgrounds, especially Swan Park. Currently, there is no access to any of the equipment for those with limited mobility. The CCA has been saving money toward this goal for several years now, and in FY23 we'll have approximately $50,000 to expend on these projects. Unfortunately, estimates we've received at Swan Park Playground alone are nearly $200,000. With our tax district budget cap and the reality of our residents already paying significantly higher local taxes due to last year's purchase of the front yard property, which we did, by the way, without any county financial aid, it would be quite a few years before we're able to do this on our own. Our community is seeing a significant demographic shift, with many of our senior residents being replaced by young families, many with multiple children, who would all benefit from safe and accessible playgrounds close to home. The CCA is also seeking funding for this project through a legislative bond initiative request for $280,000. That, however, is no guarantee, as Senator Riley has a handful of other requests in line ahead of us. We have sought other grant funding in the past, but have been denied due to Crofton not being a municipality. Therefore, we respectfully request the county's assistance with this very worthwhile endeavor that would benefit many in our nearly 13,000 resident community. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Steve Sutton and then Dave Myers.
Good evening, Mr. Pittman and Ms. Hare. I am Steve Sutton. I live at 2639 Salford Drive in Crofton. I represent Crofton Colony Homeowners Association. We are a 62 home, 55 plus community with 3 streets that intersect Underwood Road. Our home and common properties back to Crofton High School and Crofton Park, as well as extend to Fallsway Drive and abut properties on Ingleside Court. Our extensive common area has environmentally sensitive areas and streams. We thank the county for its support in stormwater issues caused by the Toll Brothers Riding's development across Underwood Road. We appreciate the county continues to diligently prod Toll Brothers to improve the stormwater mitigation to reduce the flow to the streams running through Crofton Colony. We also appreciate the installation of speed humps and signage to slow traffic on the populated portion of Underwood Road near the high school entrance. For next year's budget, we ask that you include funds to continue the pressure on Toll Brothers to find a permanent solution to the stormwater problem that has eroded our stream beds and endangered trees that now threaten the safety of our homes. Please continue to hold developers responsible for damage done outside of their development. We also ask that your budget include funds to repair the erosion in our streams and protect our environmentally sensitive areas. Second, we ask that you fund speed cameras on Underwood Road and added speed humps and signage to further slow traffic. The current speed humps work, but once leaving that area, vehicles speed up, making it dangerous for pedestrians crossing, bicyclists, and other homeowners entering and leaving Crofton Colony. Thank you for hearing our suggestions.
Thank you, Steve. Up next is Dave Myers, and then we'll hear from Karen.
Hello, Vince. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dave, we can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Myers, and I live at 2299 Mount Tabor Road in Gambrills, Maryland. I've been a lifelong resident of Anne Arundel County and love the county. I want to thank County Executive Stuart Pittman for a wonderful job he's doing in preserving the county and slowing down development a little bit right now. And also thank Jessica Hare, our council member, for her job in the 7th District. Anyway, what I'd like to share with you this evening is we need to think about developing, and maybe we should think circular, about an educational pathway for agriculture to come back to our community. Right now, there's no agricultural sciences taught typically at our high school, except for Southern, a little bit up at Cat North. We'd love to have a magnet school at the Southern High School that would be open to any student that would desire to become, develop themselves agriculturally and maybe move into college and develop themselves very highly in technical skills and science that's needed in the agricultural business. Ag business, and they would come back to the community. I've seen it time and time again. I'm also the agriculture extension educator for the county. And agricultural education is indeed something I would love to see some budgetary responsibility to for the county here. Ag businesses give back. They're a multiplier. Plus, and recently we know that they do provide food security for our region. We would like to see, I also serve on the Ag Education Committee with others that have testified here tonight. And we would love to see an agricultural education campaign across the county and maybe even an ag center developed. And so working on the Ag Advisory Council has been indeed a pleasure, and I hope to continue to do that. And I'd like to see us move forward with some of these really important agricultural education initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. If you're on Zoom with us tonight and you don't want to give a public testimony, or if you're watching on Facebook or cable access, we still want to hear from you. You can actually submit an email to fy23-budget-comments@aacounty.org, and we'll aggregate all that into our review. So up next we have Karen, and then Melanie Hartwick-Davis.
Hi, my name is, my goodness, my voice. My name is Karen Babbage from Churchton. I'm a board member of the Community Alliance of South County. And the Community Alliance of South County would like to strongly support the need for a community center, along with the other people who have spoke so eloquently about it. There's a range of disparate programs around this area, but there's no place that residents can call, a place and see it as an active community center. The community center serves the important role of helping to bring the range of socioeconomic families living in this community together to share in activities and to serve as a hub in helping to shape the community's identity. I'm sort of envious of the speakers who have sort of been able to speak for their communities like Crofton, et cetera. We desperately need that down here. One of the many functions that the community center could provide is to serve as a site for people to obtain legal and social services. It would, if we had a community center, it would serve as a transportation hub. It could offer flexible space for groups to have programs for the community. Right now, the only one available is the library, and they have one room and it's always booked. So we really, really need space for other programs. For example, programs might be legal and social services provided to those seeking services, youth programs, workforce development, creative programs of all ages, sites for meals and programs for seniors, and space for summer camps for children and youth. We really hope that a community center would be developed down here, and that, in fact, Anne Arundel County would serve as the best place for all.
Thank you, Karen. Up next is Melanie Hartwick-Davis, and then we'll hear from Alan Meyer.
Hi, good evening. My name is Melanie Hartwick-Davis. I'm an architect. I live in Lock Haven, down on the Mayo Peninsula. County Executive, I would like to thank you for taking Anne Arundel County the furthest it's ever gone with efforts for resiliency and sustainability. Your goal of 30% forest, conserving 30% forest by 2030 is indeed aggressive, but extremely critical to the future and the resiliency of our homes and our rivers. I have learned that Scenic River Land Trust, as Sean Livingston mentioned earlier, is seeking to purchase the Glebe Heights Forest. This is 45 to 52 acres in the Greenway. This speaks exactly to your mission, and I hope that your administration will strongly consider supporting Scenic River Land Trust as they stack public and private funding for this purchase. I would be remiss, Councilmember Hare, the Green Infrastructure Network map is in front of the County Council now, and I ask for your strong support to maintain the integrity of that map so that we can continue these efforts to strengthen our resiliency and our clean waters and clean air. My second point is about the, as mentioned before, 214. And thank you again, County Executive, for assisting the state and getting it on track so that we can have some safer roads, and also for supporting the study for bike paths to help with some multimodal concerns and desires that we have across the county, but certainly on the Mayo Peninsula. I want to speak exactly to those 5,000 cars that were turned away at the end of our peninsula at Mayo Beach Park. It's those 5,000 cars that make life unlivable and undesirable at the end of the peninsula. So I want to reiterate that although we have funding starting in place for the summit to Muddy Creek, do not develop further without having the entire 214 suitable for the traffic that is anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Up next is Alan Mayer and then Paul Christensen.
Good evening. Can you hear me, Vince?
I can hear you, Alan.
Okay, I'm Alan Meyer and a member of the Crofton Colony Homeowners Association Board. I'd like to thank Mr. Pittman and Ms. Hilaire for hosting this public input and for providing free test COVID kits for the county. Thank you also for fixing the sidewalks in our community of Crofton Colony and for continuing the discussion on alleviating the stormwater runoff problem that the writings has created for us. As a professional civil engineer, I've been involved in bringing our drainage problem to the attention of the county since 2018 in order to seek some remediation. Our recommended solution to the severe erosion that has been created by the writings is twofold. First, the runoff from the writings must be reduced. In my opinion, the only way to reduce the runoff is with normally dry retention basins, similar to the 3 that we have in our community ourselves. The original plan for the writings using bioswales was never more than a Band-Aid at best. Second, the severe erosion created by the increased runoff needs to be remediated so that more trees in our HOA area are not lost and a siltation downstream is not compounded. We hope to work with the county to solve both of these issues that were created by the writings increase in runoff. We would ask that Toll Brothers not be released from their performance bond until a satisfactory solution has been implemented. We hope the Stormwater Strike Team can help us since we asked for it last year and it was created. In addition to our severe drainage problem, I'd also like to mention our concern over the racetrack that has been created on Underwood Road because between Salford Drive and Tillman Road, and the need for more signage at the Underwood Road crossing adjacent to Crofton Colony Drive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Alan. Up next is Paul Christensen and then Peggy Cruz.
Good evening. My name is Paul Christensen. I live in Tracy's Landing and I'm on the board of Growth Action Network and the Alliance for Livable Communities. I'm speaking tonight to advocate for funding to conserve the most significant natural lands in our county. That's our green infrastructure. These forests and wetlands protect water and air quality. They provide habitat for plants and wildlife. They create opportunities for recreation and support mitigation of climate change. These services are known as ecosystem services, and they make valuable contributions to the quality of life for everyone in our county. We have 107,000 acres of green infrastructure in the county. And Appendix F of the Green Infrastructure Plan recently submitted to the County Council shows that the economic value of ecosystem services provided by this green infrastructure network exceeds $340 million per year, or an average of $3,200 per acre. So it's a lot of money. This is based on a detailed assessment by the State Department of Natural Resources. Our green infrastructure is therefore a giant asset that must be protected from degradation. About 65% of green infrastructure is protected by easements and county acquisitions, but about 35% of the network is privately owned and subject to land use choices of the owner. The landowner controls an important asset that is valuable to himself and to the general public. Owner's perspective of their property often changes over time, and there's risk to the public of an owner choosing to monetize his equity in the land through development, thereby destroying many of its ecosystem services. Property rights must not be violated, but it is in the public's interest that property owners in search of an exit strategy be given attractive options for easements. This could be, from the county's perspective, they could even outright purchase, and this would be a wonderful investment opportunity because it gives a very high return on investment. So we advocate very strongly for increasing the funding for protection of green infrastructure. And I think I was happy to hear that we have about an extra $1 million a year in the budget, but that's not enough. Frankly, it needs to be substantially more. Please give this higher priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you again to everyone sticking to that time limit. If your hand is raised, we do plan to get to you. We have about 18 hands up right now. Up next is Peggy Cruz, and then we'll hear from Cal Rich.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan, and thank you, County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare, for taking your valuable time to listen to your constituents about the fiscal year 23 budget. I'm here today as the chair of the Joint Commission on the Opportunity Gap, and I'd like to take this time to request your support for any and all programs and strategies that can increase the likelihood that the children of Anne Arundel County may enter kindergarten ready to learn. County Executive Pittman, on August 31st of last year, you introduced the Joint Commission on the Opportunity Gap and the goal regarding kindergarten readiness, which is the number of children who enter kindergarten ready to learn. You said that you would like to increase the statistic from 46% as it was measured in 2019 to 76% by 2026. And as you know by now, the scores on the kindergarten readiness assessment have fallen even further by 6 points since 2019. And so now only 40% of Anne Arundel County youth are entering kindergarten ready to learn. I know this issue is important to you and to your administration, or you wouldn't have set such a goal. A 90% increase in the number of students ready for kindergarten will not be easy to achieve. So I'm here today to implore you to please show your community that your commitment and to increase the number of children ready to learn in Anne Arundel County is more than just a concept. To please show our youth and their families that it is an absolutely worthwhile to ensure that they have a fighting chance to start kindergarten off on the right foot. Your support to improve kindergarten readiness will certainly increase the odds of future success for individual children and for the county as a whole. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peggy. Up next is Cal Rich, and then we'll hear from Jim.
Okay, can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, we can hear you, Cal.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm Cal Rich. I'm also a member of the Crofton Colony HOA Board of Directors. And first of all, I want to thank James Kitchen. He has been really instrumental in bringing county's attention and resources into helping solve our serious stormwater management problem here. Also, I'm going to reemphasize what Mr. Myers spoke about was the excessive speeds on Underwood Road. I know this is a lot of the traffic here is because of the congestion on Route 3. It's moved high-speed commuters off of 3 onto backcountry roads. So anything that the county can do, and if that includes putting speed cameras in, which I don't like and nobody likes, but we really need them here apparently because we're up to the limit on our speed humps, so which do work where they were put. Finally, one of the things that I'd like to bring up is snow removal processes. Our community has had to actually pay for our own snow removal ever since 2016. And we have, our community is very elderly. We have a lot of medical conditions here, and people need to get out of this community to doctors and hospitals, and we need to make sure we get ambulances in. So we would ask that maybe whoever determines snow removal priorities take a look at some situations like ours where we need that. We pay county taxes at the full rate and don't really use many of the services, especially the education budget. So having some help with snow removal and mitigation of our tree budget that were caused by the stormwater problem would be a big help. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to Mr. Kitchen and his group.
Thank you, Cal. Up next is Jim and then Joanne Riley.
Thank you, Executive Pittman and Councilperson Hare for hosting this meeting. I'm Jim Chandler from Galesville. I would like to thank you guys for everything that you've done. You support our community. We've been around for 370 years, and we're still here. But I'm as president of the Heritage Society, and I kind of have my ear to the ground. And there's a couple of issues that I hear all the time from our residents here in Galesville. One is because we're a peninsula and we're down here on the West River that we have a problem with water quality. We get a lot of runoff and off the main road as well as across the flats, and it silts up School Creek in particular that has the second to worst water quality of all of West River. And so we would like to see if possibly we could get the silt dredged out, because we're sure it contains a lot of bacteria, and it also contributes to the turbidity, and being that we're a water community, the quality of the water is really bad. The second thing that I hear quite often is, like I've heard from the Deal community, is kind of a watering hole, a place to gather for the community. We've taken a different approach where we're trying to purchase an old landmark in the community and resurrect that. And you've heard us before on making a pitch on this. We would really appreciate it if the county can help match state funds so that we can purchase this and make a community gathering place and economically redevelop an old historic landmark to the community. So with that, thank you for everything you've done for South County. And I'll give up my 12 seconds to get it back on track.
Thank you, Jim. Up next is Joanne Riley and then Ethan Schofield.
You ready? Who are you? Hi, I'm Joanne Riley and I'm from Churchton, Maryland. I'm here today to represent the Deal Churchton Community Center. And I have a business. I've been in business, Joanne's Touch, for 25 years in Churchton. And I'm a founding member of the Muddy Creek Artists Guild. And to bring art with our community center would be great. We could put together our seniors, our children, and I work with the Elks Lodge in Deal. They have plenty of grants. There's so many opportunities that we can connect with this center being built for just our kids in photography and art. Also, there's a program that I was involved in with a external program for Maryland for the high school diplomas. And I know that there's a lot of grants out there that we could connect that and have that available in our community with our community center. And I know that there's a lot of places in Deal that we can get grants to support that for all of us. And I just think that with kids, we do the Elkie Artist, and that's a grant that we get from the Deal Elks Lodge that we put together and take kids out in our community to photograph. We have cameras with printers. We have also D. Miller that helps us with our computers. And it would be nice to have that place there to have that happen. And also we do the kids that we do art with the Muddy Creek Artists Guild, and at the Deal Elks Lodge, we were hosting it there. We had 35 to 40 people come out at night to do art. The biggest thing they mentioned was that they didn't have to go across to Edgewater and that they could come right back home in our community. And I just support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Up next, we have Ethan Schofield, and then we'll hear from Darren Jensen.
Good evening, County Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare. I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I'm Ethan Schofield, a junior at Southern High School in Southern and Arundel County, and a member of the Churchton community. I'm a member and officer in both of the Southern FFA chapters and the Harwood 4-H Livestock Club, of which I raise livestock with at the Friends of Rockwood Creek Farm and Barn. As you may know, Studies in bioscience have shown that global food production needs to increase by 20 to 70% before 2050 in order to feed the world. That means our nation's population of production farmers needs to exponentially rise from 2%, and most of our agricultural jobs of 11% of our nation's workforce needs to rise as well. How do we do this? Agricultural education and agricultural advocacy through the CASE program at Southern High School. We need to magnetize the program and allow students from all over the county to reap the benefits of this program. We have an insane amount of room in our school that is not being used, all to a lack of transportation, a lack that comes from the lack of funding. In 1980, in Iowa, they had a farm crisis, which stemmed from a lack of funding and a lack of education. And it led to an almost collapse of our nation's food production. And I'm starting to see that come back. You know, the Southern cluster is one of the longest funded or founded clusters without a magnet program. The South River cluster has 3 magnet programs. Old Mill has 1, and Annapolis has 1 as well. Where's ours? We need this support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Up next, we have Darren Jensen, and then we'll hear from Megan Copeland.
Good evening. My name is Darren Jensen. I've been a volunteer for Anne Arundel County Animal Care and Control for going on 4 years now. I've come to the shelter every morning before work to interact with and walk dogs. Most of the dogs I handle during these hours have owners, so they are not available for adoption and cannot be viewed by the public. That is why we take them out before the shelter opens. Many of the dogs have been there for more than a year and a half. Why are they there and why for so long? Because their owners, some charged with cruelty or abuse, are appealing decisions made against them, as is their right. But unlike most evidence, an animal can't simply be placed on a shelf while their case meanders through the legal system. Instead, these dogs, through no fault of their own, take up room and resources for a disproportionate number of days, weeks, months, and years, costing taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars for daily care and medical attention. And they currently prevent the public from entering the dog gallery, which slows down our ability to adopt out very adoptable dogs. The county system of administrative and court appeals was slow before COVID and is now closer to grinding to a complete halt. I don't have the knowledge to say increasing the budgets for the courts or the administrative appeals process will help the problem. All I know is that these are living, breathing animals who don't understand why they are being placed in confinement. They are simultaneously costing the county resources and putting a burden on public safety. The staff and volunteers do their best, taxing their own time and emotions, trying to make the unbearable bearable for these victims of bureaucracy. I'm not here to ask for money. I'm here to hopefully shed some light on the fact that the county needs to do something to study and streamline an unintentionally cruel system and process. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Up next, we have Megan Copeland. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Megan. You're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to maybe go outside so I can get better access and run into the door. This kind of brings up my point. I don't have reliable internet, and so I often have to go outside of my home or to other locations to be able to have any type of conversation with people. So my apologies for being a few minutes late. Okay, so my name is Megan Copeland. I'm also a proud resident of South Anne Arundel County. I'm living in Friendship off of Route 260. I apologize for not being quite as prepared as some of the other participants, but I figured this was my opportunity. It's better to show up unprepared rather than not to show up at all. But sitting here listening to everyone and their concerns, I'm really honored to be a part of a community that cares. And I appreciate being able to hear what is on the hearts of my neighbors. So in the beginning, Jessica asked what my priorities are. Mine are being able to live my faith in freedom, providing for my family, and having access to food that is nutrient dense, available locally. As many of us have seen some of the impacts that COVID has had on our food supply chain. So these values are the foundation to why our family is starting a family operation. One, to give back to our neighbors, but two, to offset property taxes, as we don't feel that they are as low as the slideshow suggests. Jessica, thank you for your most recent efforts to support the Anne Arundel County farmers. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. I'm an Army veteran, a homeschooling mom to 3, a small business owner, and a healthcare practitioner that has to work virtually due to COVID. However, we don't have access to reliable or affordable internet. Currently, we pay $180 for satellite. We pay $190 for an additional Nomad device, and I still have to rent an office chair because our current service does not support HIPAA compliant software programs. Years ago, the motto used to say, Anne Arundel County is the best place to grow a family and a small business, which is why we moved here. Now it says the best place for all, but it's not the best for those whose livelihood is being negatively affected because of a lack of reliable and affordable internet. I'm asking you to think, how would no internet impact your family? What about your job? What about your ability to pay your mortgage? Our family, as are many other residents here in South.
Megan, please wrap up your thoughts. Your time has expired.
Okay, there's 74 homes that don't have access to reliable, affordable internet. I'm asking you to either prioritize working on an agreement with Calvert or to cut the political tape and allow us to have access to reliable internet.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
No problem. Up next, we have Scott Kendrosky, and then Lisa Aerosmith.
Can you hear me, Vincent?
Yep, we can hear you, Scott.
Hey, Vincent, appreciate the time here. Yep, my name's Scott Kendrosky. I live 4105 Shore and Beach Road in Edgewater. I'm Mayo resident of, I think now 11 years. I'm currently the West Shore Citizens Association president. It's one of the communities near Mayo Beach Park. And so as you guys all know, in 2020, when COVID hit, people were stuck at home, couldn't get out. In an effort to provide an opportunity for people to get out, keep active and healthy lifestyles, the county parks opened up the parks for additional days and hours, which is a great thing. Definitely commend them on that. But while that had great intentions, it overwhelmed the parks on the peninsula and the residents of the neighboring parks, causing traffic jams, vandalism, unwarranted confrontation, and other safety issues. And so this exposed and perpetuated the need to implement a process or mechanism to provide a safe and enjoyable experience for those visiting our county parks and maintain the peace and enjoyment those living in our surrounding communities have come to also enjoy. So as a result, the surrounding community leaders came together along with several county members to discuss this issue and other park related issues to help promote the smart growth and sustainability that Stuart's talked about, as well as promoting the health and wellness of our community. And I definitely commend, and I just want to give a shout out for Stuart coming to meet with our community leaders back, I think it was in 2020, to discuss our concerns and hearing possible solutions. And with that, a pilot pass system was introduced called Your Pass Now. It had great success, tremendous success, and for the safety of our community and for those visiting our parks. And I would ask that the county definitely puts aside budgetary money for the coming fiscal year and years ahead for this pass system for just not only our park, but other parks in the surrounding in the county here. Hopefully it'll be a case study and a future model for implementing a fully funded pass system. So thank you guys for all that you do.
Thank you, Scott. Up next is Lisa Aerosmith, and then we'll hear from Renee P.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Aerosmith. I'm the chair of the Public Water Access Committee, and thank you for this opportunity to advocate for better water access for the 80% of Anne Arundel County residents who do not live in waterfront homes or water privileged communities. We're bringing 3 big and 3 small requests tonight. The 3 big ones are to use the American Rescue Plan funding to build out the 2018 master plan for Mayo Beach Park, the 2018 master plan for South River Farm Park and the 2009 master plan for Weinberg Park. You know, taking these big courageous steps would also follow the pattern both of President Roosevelt, who used the Works Progress Administration and the Civilian Conservation Corps to build up parks during the Great Depression, and our former West Road Riverkeeper, Chris Trumbauer, who used TARP money to build out Shady Cove Natural Area during the Great Recession. Our 3 small pocket change projects are requests for affordable soft launches costing less than $1,000 each at the Riggleman property, River Farm Park at Jug Bay Wetland Sanctuary, South River Farm Park onto Selby Bay, and Weinberg Park onto Rock Creek. These 3 projects, again, would cost less than $1,000 each, could be done with no permitting, and there are volunteers ready and eager to support each of these programs. One final thing, the Elms House Creek side of historic London Town has terrible erosion control problems that is threatening the stairway and the docks back there. Please use stormwater money to fix this erosion problems before it destroys existing public water access. Thank you again for this opportunity to advocate for public water access in Anne Arundel County.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, we have Renee P. and then Randy Williams.
Hi, my name is Renee P. Shea. I am a mom of 3. I have 2 concerns that I just wanted to speak about, one of which being the lack of camps in South County. I live way down in South County. The lack of summer camps for kids, and the second being the Youth Association indoor facilities. We are also involved in the South County Youth Association, and we greatly appreciate all the work that's been done at the Deal Tracy Fields, but a place of equal concern is the flooding down here is horrible, and it sits on the fields. A little rain can take us off the fields for a couple days. A big rain could take us off for the entire week, and we have nowhere else to go. So an indoor facility for our outdoor sports when the weather is bad, which is a lot. And then our indoor facilities are using these small elementary school gyms, which might not even be a future option, but they're also less than ideal. It presses right up against the wall, and then you have parents line the walls in order to watch their child, and they buff the floors, making them extremely slippery. So an indoor facility for a youth association for these reasons would be awesome to have. And then the second one is we have basically 11 weeks of summer to find camps for. And obviously the county camps are much cheaper than your private camps. I spend $8,000 to $10,000 a year on summer camps. And if the closest one being Edgewater or South County, which is about 8 minutes from Edgewater, that's 30 minutes in the opposite direction of where I go to work. There's nothing on the way to 4 for parents who either work in DC or in Calvert County or going in that direction. So I would like to see more funding for county camps down here in South County that are affordable and within a closer proximity. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Up next is Randy Williams and then Mike.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, hi, thank you for hosting this budget town hall. I'm Randy Williams from Shadyside. I'm a resident here since the 1960s, and I am thrilled that we are looking at a community center for this area finally. I've been an avid swimmer for years, and between driving 35 minutes to Prince Frederick and 35 minutes to Annapolis, I would really love to have some type of facility that has something indoors during my golden age, approaching my 60s, where I'd be able to go closer to a community center. Also looking at the pandemic, I'm a nurse, so I'm looking at resiliency and recovery and healing. We have an opportunity here to allow our community to have more areas to get together. We really don't have facilities down here where everybody feels welcome all the time. And having a facility where all are welcome, cost is less expensive, would really be beneficial for our community. One lady here today talked about kindergarten readiness for the county. Well, that's a perfect opportunity to use that community center for something that would really help the children of our community, as well as the seniors. And one other issue was Shady Side Road. Please look at that. Shady Side Road next to the elementary school is completely flooded year round due to some construction that was done a year ago, and has never been repaired. Last week, a trash truck went into the ditch where the road has been frozen from water that's overrun almost all year long and flooding the school. The school now has a new wetlands area. Please look at that area on Snug Harbor adjacent to Shady Side Elementary School. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Randy. And thank you everyone for your patience. We have about 10 hands still up. So up next is Mike, and then we'll hear from Anna.
Hello.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, this is Pam Hebb. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. My husband and I live on the Mayo Peninsula in Edgewater, and I would like to discuss the stormwater drainage issue in our yard and community of Ponder Cove. Our property has two 18-inch pipes sending water on and only one 12-inch pipe going off. We currently have a lawsuit against the county and the state for ignoring their responsibility to maintain the flow of water. It appears the county has abandoned the capital project from 1978, the Selby Stormwater A1, which was the reason the county obtained and purchased the easement through our property and others in Ponder Cove. It was for the purpose to construct and maintain drainage system for the stormwater of Selby. They have not maintained. We were told by Mr. Savage at the DPW that the pitch is no good and that there is no out. They had a drain coming from the wetlands on our property across River Road, and it wasn't going into our easement. So they moved it and installed a different type of drain, and now even more water actually comes over, actually draining the wetlands 18 inches from what it had been in the past, which we were told is illegal. They say we approved, but we never approved a drain that would send us more water when the drainage course couldn't handle the water that we were previously coming on. The county has allowed all this building over the years, yet has done nothing new to handle all the extra stormwater. We would like to see money put in the budget to complete, improve, and maintain the plan that was supposed to be capital project from 1978. The county can't locate the entire plan set. Somehow it's gone. Better yet, send Selby water down River Road or down 214, not on our front property. We would like this resolved for us and our neighbors in Ponder Cove. And Mr. Pittman, let's make this the best place to live for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, we have Anna, and then we'll hear from Bill Sherba.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Anna Cheney. I am a 13th generation Southern Anne Arundel County citizen, a full-time farmer at Honey's Harvest Farm, and I'm serving currently as the chairperson of the Agriculture Commission of Anne Arundel County. I have two requests. In congruence with the long-term small area planning committees and our county's general development plan to preserve our agricultural and farmlands, one of our precious natural resources here in the county, would love to ensure that our farms are preserved based upon our county's goals. And in order to do that, we need to also ensure that the farms are sustainable. Farms are businesses, and in order to be sustainable, they must be profitable, and they need staff members. And you've heard already from students and farmers alike that we have a current demand for ag education, and our public school system does not currently provide for the existing demand. So I would ask first that you please support and urge the Anne Arundel County Public School System to allow for Southern High School to become the magnet school, as you've heard earlier, for ag education. And secondly, that you would please consider including a sum, and I don't know exactly what that sum is, but I'm taking an educated guess based on some information from those who are working directly at the farm the Rockhold Creek Farm in the neighborhood of $200,000 in the budget, the county budget, for required improvements at the barn at Rockhold Creek Farm to provide solid and safe stalls for the ag students who are currently on the wait list to be involved in that program. We desperately need to educate these students, these people who are wanting this education, who are wanting to learn about the agricultural industry, and we have the opportunity to do so. We have the land, we have the property. We're 75% there. We just need to get over the hump. I thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Anna. Up next is Bill, and then we'll hear from Marsha Perry.
All right, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Executive Pittman and Councilwoman Hare. 20 years ago, I had the fortune to sit on the, be involved with the comprehensive zoning of this county in the small area plan. And I sat on the deal Shady Side Planning Committee. And we sat through a year's worth of public comments, live public comments we went from Deal to Shady Side and back again into Galesville, and heard everything from indoor pools being recommended for down here to transit systems to senior housing. But the one topic that everybody seemed to agree on at the time was a community center in Deal. And it was put in the small area plan, and it was approved by the county council. And we're here 20 years later, still trying to get some sort of community center down here. I know when I was a kid, they put the library in Deal, and that was a pretty progressive idea back in the, I don't know when it was, but it was a long time ago, and I'm not that young. But I think it's time to stop talking about this community center and get on with it. It's time is way overdue. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Up next is Marsha Perry, and then Patrick Malone. Hey, Marsha, are you able to talk?
Thank you, Vince.
Okay.
I am delighted that some of the speakers before me actually remembered that Crofton is in District 7, and that District 7 is no longer divided by Route 50, often in the past called the Gaza Strip. As remembering that, of course, Crofton originally was in District 4. Chris Trumbar, I'm not a budget nerd, and I'm not excited by online budget tools. However, I am an avowed tree hugger, a land conservation and preservation wacko. And tonight I did not hear enough in the budget directed to those issues. So please, those of you who do go line by line, please assure me that the budget office did not delete the Forestry Board funding for community projects as happened last year. I have no clue what the Climate Resilience Authority will actually do for the northern part of District 7. Someone in one of the budget nerds needs to tell me what authority or board will provide purchase of some conservation easements, of community preserves. And yes, Stuart, I very much appreciate your 30% goal of land mass conservation, but I've never felt that there's enough of it north of Route 50, especially within the established communities, so that a parent can walk down the street and show their child a tree. We do very much appreciate action by the stormwater management, stormwater strike team, as we've been the dumping ground for East and South County long enough. And you've heard from many of our neighbors tonight, and we'll be happy to see that that force more active in our area. And as we listen to our neighbors tonight for their 2 minutes, as we speak and as we listen, an appeals hearing is going on in the county council chambers for the Patuxent rubble landfill on the banks of the Patuxent River and in the Patuxent watershed just west of Crofton. And please find budget funds to stop this now. The Patuxent flows south, must I remind you. The pollution has to be stopped west of Crofton. The southern counties of Maryland sued us back in the 70s for polluting the Patuxent, and they won that.
Marcia, your time has expired. Please conclude your remarks.
Okay, I'm done. Thanks. Well, I'm not done, but whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Up next is Patrick Malone and then Laura Collins.
All right, Vincent, am I coming through?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right. Mr. Pittman and Ms. Hare, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening regarding the county budget. Mr. Pittman, I want to begin by thanking you, your staff, and members of the county council that have voted over the last 3 years to provide a budget that installs the necessary funding to bring my colleagues and myself to the correct salary steps. I am a teacher in the county and have worked in the county for 10 years. And my paycheck starting tomorrow will be the first time in over a decade that my compensation reflects my actual years of experience and what my contract says I should be being paid along with my colleagues. Mr. Pittman, your proposed budgets and past budgets have provided financial security for my family and myself, and we do so dearly appreciate that. Ms. Hare, I just want to say that I'm aware of your voting record over the past budgets, and it is something that I'm disappointed in, that you would vote against fiscal stability for my family and my colleagues. I know that times have been tough recently. Teacher salaries have only risen at about a third the rate of inflation over the last 10 years. So I would just request that healthy cost of living be addressed in this budget and future ones. Also, please make sure that enough money is addressed to provide transportation for students to go to school. My final comment is that I've been volunteering for the past year with the indoor track team at Crofton High School, and we haven't had a single meet on an indoor track this year because of COVID and facility restrictions. If it's possible to address that with the construction of a West County swim center or a community center, I would like that to be considered to be paired along with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Patrick. Up next is Laura Collins, and then we'll hear from David Miller. Laura, are you able to speak? Oh, Laura's trumped off. David Miller.
Unmute. Okay, I'm here. I'm Director of High Schools and Post-Secondary Education for the Maryland Agricultural Education Foundation. And I'm here to make some comments in support of the magnet program that's been talked about by several other people tonight regarding agriculture education at Southern High School. I'd like to remind you that agriculture is the largest industry with an economic impact in Maryland of $23.3 billion each year, supporting 94,500 Maryland jobs and generating nearly $902 million in state and federal tax. Now, while production farmers make up less than 2% of the American population, agricultural jobs provide almost 11% of the U.S. employment. And there are over 250 different careers in agriculture. What these broad sectors in ag need the most are graduates who are familiar with the field and understand the unique needs of agriculture. With so few people being born and raised into the farming tradition, the industry needs increased emphasis on agriculture education to prepare the students of today to lead and serve the agricultural industry of tomorrow. So this brings us to the cause that we've talked about, which is proposing today that the expansion of the existing agriculture education CASE program at Southern High be expanded to include a magnet program. And this would allow students enrolling or students who are in other high schools around the county to enroll in this program. So by exposing more students to the program at Southern High, more individuals will have the opportunity to prepare for careers in the broad field of agriculture and serve the needs of Anne Arundel County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. And really quickly, I'm being told by our tech team that Laura Collins was unable to be unmuted because she needs to update her Zoom. So Laura, if you want to quickly log off, update, and then rejoin us, we would be happy to give you the opportunity to speak. For now, we're going to move on to Breezy Tipton Gorman. And then Jay Adav and Lana will be next.
Wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Thank you. My name's Breezy Tipton Gorman, and I'm a resident of Southern Anne Arundel County, living in Churchton, Maryland. Grew up here, went to Shadyside Elementary, Southern Middle, Southern High, went to Salisbury State University. I'm a true Marylander. I am a 16-year business owner of Interior Image, and I have 2 teenage sons, age 13 and 16, 7th and 11th grade. Now, with relation to the Deal Community Center, I'm a huge yes for this. As a young person that grew up in this community, and not having those facilities available to me as an individual that grew up and looking for something to do, we always had struggles having to drive further out to different areas and counties to be able to meet.
Breezy, you muted yourself.
I'm sorry, is it there? Can you hear me now? Sorry, the phone rang. So basically, the town really needs a location for the young community, especially middle school all the way through high school, particular to the interior basketball, the track, the swimming, all of that needs to be closer to us because there's so many people that are basically falling to the wayside and not getting the opportunity because we don't have facilities close enough to be able to support it. And along with the summer camps, that's going to be a facility where a lot of camps could be held there. There's specialty offerings. There's different art programs that could come to this facility. You've got specialty dance classes, teachers, things that would happen and blossom and make this community even better. And it would serve all ages from young little people all the way to our senior citizens. So my feeling is that that community is sort of the key to a lot of issues that are going on related to making sure we have something closer by. And I fully support the whole concept of potentially putting the agricultural program as a magnet program for Southern High School. And I know that my children are potentially people that could benefit from that as well. So I'm a huge advocate for those 2 things particularly. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Breezy. Up next, we have Jay Adavanola.
Hey, Vince, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good evening, County Exec Pittman and Councilwoman here. Thank you both for having this virtual meeting. My name is Joe Divinola, President of Anne Arundel County Professional Firefighters Local 1563 and a county resident. I first want to say our firefighters are proud to serve the great residents of Anne Arundel County. We operate in 31 stations across the county. Over the last couple of years, we have made great strides in adding positions, but we remain below NFPA standards at 26 stations here in the county. In fact, right here in District 7, at Fire Station 7 on Davidsonville Road, there are only 2 firefighters there 24 hours a day. There are 2 day workers there from 7 a.m. to 3:24 Monday through Friday only. Both of you know how physical our job is. We work a 24-hour shift. Some of our members during the past year and a half have worked 48 hours straight due to COVID positive members not being able to work. The pandemic has put such a burden on all the hospitals in our area. In fact, many of our medics are waiting hours at hospitals for their patients to be offloaded onto a hospital bed. The last county exec wanted to cut taxes, cut staffing. Some of them wanted to cut our pay. When I hear a politician grandstand that they want to cut taxes, I know my members will suffer fatigue, lifelong injuries, career-ending diseases, and possibly die on the job. This last week in Maryland, we lost 1 firefighter in Carroll County due to COVID-19. And yesterday in Baltimore City, we lost 3 experienced, courageous firefighters in a fire, with their department going out the door with 4 to 5 firefighters on each piece. We can do everything right on a fire with proper staffing and not go home to our families. The chances of something like this happening in Anne Arundel County are more likely with our staffing shortages. It's not a matter of when It's not a matter of if this will happen, it's when. Ask yourself if cutting taxes are more important than saving the lives of county residents and your professional firefighters. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Jay. And we're down to our last three participants with their hands raised. Up next is David M. Then we'll have Don Pulliam, and we'll close with Laura Collins. David, you should be able to unmute now.
Okay, how's that?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. David Morseberger from Davidsville. Thank you, County Executive Pittman and Jessica Hare, Councilwoman Jessica Hare. I'm a lifetime resident in Arundel County and now live in District 7. I understand and respect the new services being requested by our fellow citizens. However, now I do not feel it's the time for additional spending. We have rising inflation, closed businesses, reduced payroll, and an increasing dependency on a federal government that has annual deficits as far as the eye can see and is deeply in debt. Signs show it's probably going to get worse before it gets better. I recommend that we focus our budget on our core services, and that includes adequate police, adequate fire protection, reading, writing, arithmetic, and agriculture on schools, sufficient roads, fresh water, a great sewage system, stormwater management, and preserving our natural resources. In my experience, the citizens of Anne Arundel County have always been and are still very resilient. We can focus on the other services after we get through the near-term local, state, and federal issues that are and will continue to impact our citizens of District 7 and throughout the county and the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Up next is Dawn.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Dawn Pulliam, Crofton, Maryland. Thank you, Councilwoman Jessica Hare and County Executive Pittman for this opportunity. Based on the conversation and the briefing that you laid out, I asked for your consideration on two items. First, in terms of taxes, I ask that you consider legislation that aligns with Governor Hogan's continuous efforts to provide tax relief to our retirees. The state and our county are not known for being retiree friendly. This would be one small step to incentivize our retirees to stay in the county they love. Second, as the 2040 plan identifies agriculture as a priority in the county, we are behind the curve in terms of a succession plan for recruiting and preparing our future workforce. The agriculture and education program at Southern High School is essential in order to keep agriculture alive in our community. I ask that the county champion and invest in strengthening and elevating the program to a magnet program so that we can expand our net and recruit and educate students throughout the county and keep our agriculture traditions strong in Anne Arundel County and the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Up next is Laura Collins. Laura, it appears we're still having the same issue. I apologize, but as stated before, if you would like to submit your comments to fy23-budget-comments@aacounty.org, we'll still accept those. We actually do have one more hand raised, and then we're going to close with that person, VK Holterdorf.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. And I want to thank County Councilman Stuart Pittman and Councilperson Jessica Hare for hosting this. We want to say how excited we are about having the land, 15 acres saved in the middle of Deal for our town park. And I think as everyone has stated, this has been a 20-year dream, and now that dream is reality. And we're just so thankful for the county's support on that. having a community center with programs everyone else has spoken to, and you can just see the dripping of great ideas and resources that this area has to offer, and particularly with the Muddy Creek Artists Guild and all of their talent to teach art classes, but theater, dance, exercise, education, it goes on, and they've all spoken to this very well. One of the things that seems to be a little confusing down here is that if you build, and we're hoping you will, a community center adjacent to our beloved library here, it really gives the town a center and a focal and all the best that we have to offer. But it's got 15 acres. So there's more land there for other things that the community also wants, like a jogging trail and a children's park. And that won't necessarily not happen if we have a community center. So I think it can be a place where we can all gather inside and outside and celebrate the diversity of this community. And I just want to thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, VK. That now concludes the public testimony portion tonight. I want to thank everyone who participated and everyone who tuned in and stuck with us throughout the entire duration of the meeting. With that, one last note. Once again, if you didn't get a chance to speak or if you would like to submit public testimony, please submit that to fy23-budget-comments@aacounty.org. With that, I will pass it over to Councilwoman Hare.
Thank you, Vincent. I appreciate it. Thank you all for that incredible testimony. I mean, comments ranged from the revenue side to the expenditure side. There were obviously some somber comments. There were some about real needs in the county, and then some about things that would be incredible amenities. I mean, I'm looking back at my notes, community gardens, on the libraries. I can tell you the libraries have been such a huge asset. And every single time I call a library for a constituent, they have all been incredible in trying to really make sure that we can figure out whatever the issues are. Deal Park, obviously there's a lot of testimony on that this evening. Route 214, we heard about need for tennis funding. Rockhold Barn, tons of testimony on that. The Ag Magnet program, thank you guys for all sharing those incredible ideas. Money for preservation of parkland. We heard helpful comments about the pass system down on the Mayo Peninsula. Investments in public safety for first responders, as well as infrastructure for what our first responders do every day. Water access was one that we heard about, improvement on fields, turf fields and lighting in this part of the county, picnic spaces, etc. Animal care and control, staff veterinarian. That one tugs at my heartstrings. I hear you loud and clear on that. Stormwater, the study for bike paths, more improvements in those areas, kindergarten readiness, snow removal, stormwater obviously is a big one, redevelopment of the historic landmark in Galesville. I can go on and on and on, transportation, all sorts of things. I really appreciate you all bringing this to our attention and sharing your evening with us. If you need to email me directly, in addition to reaching out for the budget email, my email is jessica.hare, and that's HAIRE @aacounty.org. Thanks so much, guys.
Mute button. All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Hare. It's great to be with you, and it's great to hear from our constituents together at the same time, so we can compare notes as we make the tough decisions in the budget that we have to make every year. I want to actually get into a little bit of my thoughts on a few of the issues that a lot of people spoke on. I'll start with the ag people. First of all, the proposal to make our CASE program at Southern High a true magnet program. I have supported this from before I was in this job. I was on the board of Farm Bureau, and as you know, Farm Bureau has provided a lot of support to that program. And so when some young people came to me, and dinatice in particular came to me and said, we should make this a real magnet program because we have space in Southern High School, and it would relieve space in some of our other high schools to get kids down here. And I did talk to Dr. Arlato about that. And the major obstacle is transportation, because when you make it a magnet program, then you have to provide transportation for kids to get there. I don't have, nor does the council have the power to make that happen, but it has to come from the school board. And I would encourage you to go to the school board with this proposal, to continue to push for it, and particularly to have the young people speak on behalf of the proposal, because it makes a ton of sense. And I think it can happen, but we're gonna have to fight for it. We're gonna have to organize for it. And we're gonna have to push. Rockhold Farm, I didn't know that there was a proposal to fund the stalls in the paddocks. And I know that we've funded some of the work there so far. And I encourage you to work with Rec and Parks to get that into their budget, and so that we can look at it. So that's how the process comes through Rec and Parks. And I will talk to them about that as well, and make sure that we have estimates for what it would cost to try to get that done, because I know it's an important program for young people who are there. Deal Park. Lots of folks spoke about a desire for a community center at the site that we have acquired to do Deal Park. As you may have noticed, capital projects in county government take a long time, in all of government take a long time. And we still haven't built the park, and it's in the design phase, and it's frustrating to me and all of us how long these things take, but there is a process for them. The proposal to add a community center to Deal Park came up this last year, and I recognize that it's in the small area plan. And I am a big supporter of community centers. As you know, the previous administration did a study and determined that Anne Arundel County shouldn't do community centers because we have schools where recreation takes place, and we have libraries and other things that can serve the need. We changed that. We did the Severn Center. We are doing the Severn Center, the intergenerational center with Boys and Girls Club and a senior center. And I have said that I want to get at least one up in Brooklyn Park and one in South County. So I support doing a community center in South County. Some people have talked about that, including a senior center. And there is a demonstrated need for a senior center further into South County beyond Edgewater, where we're doing rebuilding of the current senior center and expansion. And there's also a need for Boys and Girls Club. And there's, in fact, there's some work being done by some private folks to do Boys and Girls Club in South County. And we've been in conversations with them about sites, and we've been in conversations with other folks about sites. So I can tell you that there is movement underway to do a community center in South County that can serve really all of South County, I would hope. I think we have to have a further conversation, though, about the Deal site and the Deal Park, and whether we want to slow that down, take that out of the capital budget to do a community center or not. And I think there is going to be a community meeting to review some of the design with Rec and Parks, and we'll hear from folks about that. But it's going to be a tough sell to stop the park and do the community center and make it into something which has been described as pretty significant to have sports inside and all of that. Third, I want to just thank, as always, our police officers, our teachers, and our fires and our firefighters for being here, advocating, reminding us that we have work to do for all three in our budget. And I also neglected to mention early on, I said it at our press briefing earlier today, the deep pain that we all feel for the families of the 3 firefighters lost yesterday in Baltimore City. I've been in touch with the mayor, and they just keep getting hit. Police officers shot a month or so ago there as well, and so our hearts are with them. And it is true that when we invest in our fire department and in our apparatus and in our staff, we are reducing the likelihood of those things happening in our county. Stormwater, thank you, folks from Crofton Colony, for being here. You are vocal, and we have heard you, and both our community engagement and constituent service staff, as well as Matt Johnston, our environmental policy director, and our stormwater strike team. The riding development really got it wrong on stormwater. I don't know that they actually have a bond on their stormwater. It was mentioned that we need to hold them to their bond. That's a new program that we're requiring of developers. But it's important that we we continue our stormwater restoration work in our county, and we're good at it compared to most. But some of the development that has been built in this county has really destroyed our local waterways and impacted their neighbors, and we have to do a better job in the design phase of all of that. Glebe Heights, as you know, the development project there, we so far have held that off. I do suspect that there's a lawsuit coming. There often is when our Office of Plan and Zoning says no to a development project. They have lawyers, and they're in discovery, and if there's a way to work with the Scenic Rivers Land Trust to preserve that land for perpetuity, I think we should be looking hard at that. So we will be looking at that. Animal care and control, thank you for always being here. I have talked to your director about the inability to hire a part-time vet for the kind of money that we put in the budget last year. I understand that money is being used to bring veterinarians in to provide services, but that we need to do better. I was surprised nobody brought up the livestock trailer. We're in South County. I'll bet you that there's a used one for sale somewhere. There's probably somebody on this call that's got a livestock trailer. In fact, I know somebody on this call who used their livestock trailer because there was a loose hog, and animal care and control didn't have one. So that might be something that's not too hard to do, but I'm not supposed to make promises in these budget town halls about what we're going to do in our budget. The park pass system, I can promise that will continue. My heart went out to the people when I was standing. It was not last summer, but the year before I went out, when folks were literally pulling up at it was Beverly Triton, to get in, and were being turned away after driving here from who knows where. And that pass system has spared those folks that drive because they know whether or not they're going to be able to get in. And I completely agree that we need far more water access in our county, and we have some properties that are in the works, and we're going to continue to work with both the water access folks and with the residents that are impacted on the traffic and the impacts in the neighborhood. Internet in areas of the county where it's hard to get good internet service. There is actually an application going to the federal government. We tried to go to the state. The red tape was too much at the state. We're going straight to the feds to make it possible to get better internet service in South County in places that don't have good service. And finally, let me just mention Crofton before I stop and say that it was interesting to hear about the garden proposal at the front yard. We used to call the enclave the land that project did get stopped, and I want to thank the community of Crofton for stepping up and purchasing that with their own money. Interesting idea there. And then the playgrounds. It is an awkward situation when the homeowners have their own playgrounds, and so they have fewer park playgrounds as a result. And then they don't have the deeper pocket of county government and federal and state grants to help improve playground equipment. So that's a real policy decision as to whether or not the county steps up in a situation like that. But I know that we're having that conversation. So I'll stop there. Thank you, everybody, for your great testimony. You know, they say that we're all divided by party and we don't get along with each other, and the world is falling apart. But when I hear people come together and talk about the needs of their community like this and engage in government, it gives me hope for the future, and continue to engage, because that's really how we get things done in this county. So thank you.